Welcome to The Dash. Hi, this is Yvonne Smith with The Dash. We are here for another amazing episode where we get to hear somebody's story that was given to them to bring God all the glory. Today I am with such a dear sister, friend. I mean, there's so many adjectives that I could use. And this is Jacky Yacko, and I am so excited that you're on here with me today, Jacky.
Yvonne, thank you so much for having me. I consider you a friend and a mentor, and I'm just so happy to be hanging out with you.
Well, me too. Yeah, I thought, do we do the video first and then talk? Well, we just decided to talk first, and so, but I want everybody to understand how valuable their story is. And sometimes, and you shared like you're an introvert, and a lot of the times I find like introverts, they're just like, oh yeah, nobody wants to hear from me. And it's like, oh no, I want to pull that out of you because it's so valuable. And the years that I've gotten to know you, it's like I see this amazing like rose, and it's like this, one of my favorite times of a rose is when it's that beautiful bud. It's so beautiful, and then all of a sudden it just begins to open up, and that's where I see you now. Like you're opening up. And so I wanted to get you full bloom. So Jacky, tell me, because the point of the Dash is that we understand just how valuable this time is. And share, I want you to share what you got about the Dash, even the word Dash.
Yeah, so when you told me about this, Yvonne, I thought this was awesome. It's so true. I think we go through life every day and we think we have all this time, and we forget to say, like, to think about that we have a dash and it's going quickly.
Yes.
And even as the word says, our life is but a vapor.
Yes.
And dash is a noun,
Yes.
but it's also a verb. To dash
Yes.
is to run fast.
Amen.
And when I think about somebody dashing, I think running fast, running smooth, almost like a gazelle.
Yes.
That they're not tripping and falling and going to the left or the right. They're going straight, and they're going fast, and they're gliding, and almost effortlessly, but quick, swift motions, and just the way our life is but a vapor.
Yes.
Don't we want to dash our dash?
Yes. Oh, I love that. And it reminds me in Hebrews where it says, don't get caught up with all the things that try to weigh you down, but run this race with your eyes set on the prize. And it's like, and we see all these things want to weigh us down in this world. And it's like, no, you just keep running this race. You keep running this dash. And so I love that you pointed that out as a verb. So talk to me about when you first knew, what, and it doesn't have to be necessarily God called you to this, but when did you first begin hearing the voice of God and becoming more sensitive to his voice?
It's funny, I grew up, when people would tell me I heard the Lord say, or God spoke to me, I thought they were nuts, that they were off their rocker, and I thought, you just think you're hearing voices in your head and you need help. And I thought that was crazy talk. Yeah. I really did.
Yeah.
And in my 20s, I was just dipping into what the world had to offer, and it was fun until it wasn't. Yeah. Until you hit a point and you go, this is no longer satiating, or this is no longer, this is not as fun as it used to be. And when I came to the end of what the world had to offer, I was empty. Yeah. And I thought, is this all there is? How many of us have got to that place, right? Yes. And you say, is this it?
Yes.
And I felt like I was in a desert and I was thirsty and I didn't know where to find water. And my sister at the time invited me to, this women's meeting where there was a speaker, and I started just listening to testimonies of women, things that they were walking through, and they would speak about their relationship with the Lord, and I think it started to open up my mind to the thought of maybe he does speak.
Yes.
And for me, it just started as I would have this inkling or this knowing in my heart of, maybe there was 5 choices in front of me for whatever it was, for a path to take. And it was just, one would be a little bit more, the others would be, 4 of them would be dimly lit, but the 5th one would just be lit up just a little bit more. Not like it wasn't a voice booming from heaven, or it wasn't some big light bulb. It was just, that path just looked a little bit brighter than the other ones.
Yes.
And it would just be, I think I'm supposed to go that way, or a knowing, or it was a gentle heart nudge or tug, maybe is the right, and I would start to go, well, that could be a divine, is that God? I don't know, but I would just kind of creep towards that way, and things would just start to unfold, and I thought, yeah, that was the right way, but I never had some big booming, voice or thunder, or I just never experienced that. But as I started to become more attuned to that, that knowing, or that, oh, I felt this feeling before, I know this knowing, this feels familiar. And then it would become more obvious to me when I had that same, okay, I'm presented with this choice. And now I know, okay, I can start to feel I'm supposed to go here. Sometimes it would be like at my job in my 20s, I knew that time was coming to a close, but I didn't know where I was going. And so I just started praying, Lord, show me if you're real and you have this path, this assignment, this thing that people are talking about. That you have, that you're not just the God of, in the Bible, but you're the God of today. You're alive today, and you have a plan for me. Like, what could that possibly be? What do you me? What? I just want to get married and have kids. Like, a plan for me. What do you want me to do? And I thought, okay, well, if this is real, then God, show me. Show me what it is. And I started to notice that there would be people placed in my life that would speak things, and they would say something, it would pierce into my heart. Just one sentence. Maybe I spent 3 hours with them, but one thing they said pierced. And I thought, oh my goodness. And that actually happened in my transition from my job that I had in my 20s. The Lord called me out of fitness into aviation. And I was just on a pilot shop one day, looking at, different things. And I met this man who had just retired from being a pilot. And he spoke things to me, and what I didn't know was he was giving me divine direction.
Wow.
And I remember, even in that moment of awe, I was so young, I was probably 26 when he said, and I scratched down what he said on a piece of paper. It was like I ripped it off of something, and I thought, like, okay, I even know what he's saying. And I threw it in my bag, and I got home that day, and I threw it in a drawer, and I shut the drawer, and I was like, whatever, And so, but all along I'm thinking, Lord, show me what I'm supposed to do. If you are God and you hear us today, and you speak, show me, show me, show me. So years go by, and I'm still praying the same prayer. And that man and that piece of paper came back to my remembrance of this pilot shop, and I'm going, why am I remembering this man that I met who just retired, was talking to me about this field in aviation that I didn't know. And so I go, I wonder if that piece of paper is still in that drawer.
Wow.
So I go back over, I open this drawer, and sure enough, there's this ripped piece of paper, and in the very corner of it was scribbled down what he told me. And I pulled it out, and I'm thinking, no way. So I go online, and it felt like a treasure hunt. That's what it felt like. And it felt like for 3 years I'm praying to God, and he gave me the answer, and I shoved it in the drawer as if it was a piece of trash. And I'm crying out. Meanwhile, he's like, I already gave it to you. So I start Googling, and it really felt like a treasure hunt. And I'm like, and all of a sudden, just things started to click. Like it felt like piece by piece, almost as if a puzzle piece, you're trying to fit pieces in and they're not fitting. And you go, oh, this one, and it just snaps into place and you go,
Yes.
whoa, that's it.
Wow.
And that's how I started hearing the voice of God. It wasn't, never heard an audible voice. Ever. Never, I didn't have somebody say, the Lord's saying this. It wasn't that. It was just normal people in normal settings. My heart knowing. And it wasn't anything weird. It wasn't anything crazy. I never had, anything appear to me in the spiritual. Nothing like that. I've just not, that's not been my experience. I'm also very practical. I'm very, when people tell me, so I think the Lord knows also how to speak to us too. I'm very logical and rational. So I think if the Lord would have came to me in a weird way, I would have just ran the other way. So my experience has been just very, very practical, very nothing. I've never had anything really crazy or wild happen. It's just not been what my path has looked like. But that's how I started to hear his voice. And then when I would have those moments of something would pierce my heart and somebody was speaking, I thought, okay, let me pay attention to that. Let me write that down. Let me remember what that one sentence or that one thing that person said has hit me. And it wasn't a pastor on a pulpit. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I believe in going to church and listening to your pastor. But for me, it was just been a lot of normal situations. People that maybe didn't even know what they were saying in that moment, but it was like God's breath was in it. God's presence was there. And I would take it. So now when something pierces me like that, I go, okay, I'm supposed to do something with that. And I'll go home and I'll write it down. Or sometimes it's a thought. Now it'll be a thought that comes up in my mind that it'll come. It's so wise and so specific, and it comes to me faster than my brain can compute it. I know that I think that's a divine. That's from the Lord. That's divine. And you write that down. And so that's kind of been my experience of just navigating through life, and it's why I'm so careful of who I spend time with, who I allow to share my dreams and visions with, and then who I allow to speak into it. Because just the way the Lord speaks, there's a lot of voices in the world, and some will try to derail you. And so it's important to know, is this God's voice? Or is it something else? And to recognize the difference. And that was also very hard for me to navigate initially as well.
I love that you expounded on that about hearing the voice of God, because I think so often I will have people say, well, I don't hear God's voice. I don't hear God's voice, because they're waiting for that thus saith the Lord, and like you said, the thunder from heaven and all that. And I realized, and I didn't realize it then, but I realized, and you know my childhood and things that happened to me in my childhood, but I remember being just a little girl, not much past that, about 5, 6 years old, and being on a family vacation, and we were just at like a boarding house type of a place that we stayed, and being in the bathroom and just hearing a voice inside go, you're my princess. You're my princess. And I would go, I'm a princess. And it was never like anything proud. It was just, and if you looked at anything in my life, I looked like anything but a princess. But I heard that voice, and it was a voice that was a friend. And, and it was like, if I would have said to somebody, yeah, I'm hearing a voice, and they would have been like, yeah, that's an imaginary friend or whatever. But it was like, as the years went by, you come to understand that voice more and more. And like for me, God knew I needed that right then. God knew I needed to hear his voice then. And but for you to say, it's just been that still, small knowing, and that helps people, because people just, they feel like they're lesser than, or maybe they're made to feel lesser than because they're not getting these prophetic words. But it's like, I love that you, and I tell people this, if I tell you something and it's not clicking in your heart, put it on the shelf. And if it never comes to pass, it won't hurt my feelings. But you go with what you hear in your heart, because the same Holy Spirit lives inside of you. And what somebody says needs to confirm in your heart what God is saying. And so, and I also love that you said you're very careful, and in knowing you this time, you're very careful in who you share stuff with. And, you know, and I love that, because it says don't put your pearls out there before swine. You know, I mean, you don't want to be giving all of the jewels that God gives you and putting them out there for someone who devalues them or tramples them. And so I love that. I love that. And so, so now, okay, so then you go into aviation, and you have just been promoted upon promotion in this area.
Yeah, and I always tell people I'm not, you know, there's many qualified people,
Yeah.
and there are people that are smarter than me, and, you know, but that's how you know when the promotion is from the Lord, is when doors just keep opening. And I do think that I believe in hard work, but the Lord does not bless idle hands. The Bible's clear about that. So we do need to roll up our sleeves and give him hands to work with. But I can also see that this was not, I can't boast about what I did.
Yeah.
I cooperated with him. I said yes and cooperated. And I think that sometimes we need both pieces to that puzzle.
That's right.
That as long as we're willing to work, the Lord will, if we're on the right path, he'll bless it.
Yes.
And so, and this was a field that I didn't even know I would love the way that I love it. I couldn't have found this without him. I didn't know what it was. So I know that it's the Lord. And I, even before I had this position, I wrote down a bunch of things. You know, people do this when they want like a spouse or with a job. And I said, I listed all these things that I wanted in a job, including at the time, I just didn't want a Monday through Friday 9 to 5. I just didn't want that mundane feeling. And I mean, he not only checked every box, but surpassed it. Surpassed it. And that's the God that we serve. He will surpass what you ask for many times. And he's not Santa Claus, and he's not, but he's a father. He's a father. He's God and he's Father. And he, you know, the word talks so much about bringing our requests to him and making our requests known in Jesus. And if you ask the Father in my name, he will do it for you. And so I think when our heart is for the kingdom and for serving people and for saying, God, you know, where do you want me and what do you want me doing? If we have that, like, God, I'm following your path, that path is already blessed in front of you. So if you just say, show me, and it's a yes, I say yes to you, he's already blessed it. So he's going to enable you, he's going to open doors. It does take that, though. I have to keep my ears like attuned to hearing him, because sometimes you are presented with, now there's 3 open doors. Sometimes it feels like every door is shut, and then other times all of a sudden 3 or 4 fling open, and they all look shiny and new and exciting, and I don't know which way to go. So I'm going to wait until I know, okay, this is the way to go.
That's so good.
And sometimes, you know, it does take like that forward motion, like even when he was telling Moses to, when they were crossing the Red Sea, and Moses had to step into the water before it was parted. So sometimes it's a pause and a wait, and other times it's like start to go, and I will show you, and that takes a bolder. So sometimes it's the boldness of going forward and saying, I know when it's time you're going to part the sea, and I'm going to see where I'm supposed to go. And other times when he's teaching us to bridle, that you need to bridle and pause and wait. And do not move without me. And so it's also hearing his voice like, do you want me going forward, or do I just pause right here and I wait for you? And every situation is different. Everybody's path is different. And there are times when it's a pause and wait, and there are times when it's go and I'll show you.
And isn't this relational journey just so exciting because of that? And it's like, you know, he's not, you know, like you and I were talking earlier, you know, that there is a thought that if I become a Christian, or if I give my heart over to the Lord completely, it's going to be boring. And it's like anything but boring to be led and guided by the one that said, light be, stars be, and I am going to take the time to lead you and guide you.
Yeah.
And we go, oh yeah, but out here would be so much funner. And it's like, have fun in everything you're doing in Him.
Yeah, I think it's like, just when we think about like God created the enjoyment that we have in the world.
Yes.
He created food and taste buds.
Yes.
He created sex.
Yes.
He created laughter.
Yes.
He created like dancing. These are things that God created.
Yes.
And then the world took it and tried to stamp it
Yes.
and twisted it, and some of these things, and then we can have this legalistic mind of thinking, well, all
Yes.
all dancing is bad, or all sex is bad, or all
Yes.
indulging is bad, and it's not.
Yeah.
And all these good things come from the Lord, and I think it's important to say, God, how do I enjoy my life, these
Yes.
things that you've given us laughter and dancing and food and people. How do I enjoy it in a way that's pleasing to you? Because
Yes.
for so long, I know for over a decade, I lived like that, thinking, my life is boring. I go to church and this is so boring, but I'm not sinning.
Yeah.
It was what I didn't do that defined my
Yes.
walk, as opposed to what I am doing. And it was a
Yes.
very defensive, boring life.
Yes.
I don't drink, and I don't, whatever. I don't curse. I don't drink.
All the
I don't,
don'ts we're not
don't,
supposed to do.
Don't. And it's like, well, who wants that?
I know.
Who's attracted to that?
I
How
know.
am I doing anything for the kingdom by
I
telling
know.
people what I don't do
I know.
instead of what I am doing
Yes.
and what God is doing in my life?
Yes.
And taking more of an offensive posture in this earth. And God is fun, and He has an adventure for everybody. And I never looked at it this way.
Yes.
And now that I'm just kind of like taking off in this direction of, I want to soar with you, Lord.
Yes.
I don't want to just say what I don't do, so that when I get to the pearly gates, I can say, I didn't. And then I'm going to say also, and I probably didn't complete my assignment either, because I was so entangled, and so my mind was so weighed down with don't, that I wasn't doing the do's.
Yes.
Because if you do the do's and you go with Him and you take off on this adventure, you won't want to sin. You won't want to do those things. They'll fall away.
No.
And He's really not up there. I just don't think our God is up there saying like, you really messed up today. Like, He's just saying like, just be with me. Just go on, come on this journey with me. And as you spend time with Him, you lose your taste for, the things, the sin and the things that the world has to offer you. I've lost my taste for it.
Yes.
The things that were fun to me in college just no longer appeal to me now. But I'm having more fun now, and I'm happier now, and I'm peaceful now.
Yes.
And I feel more vibrant, alive, healthy, and strong now than I did 20 years ago.
Yes.
Saying yes to God. Aging and being tired and being bored and being depressed. These are all things that they have nothing to do with God.
No.
Aging past the point of full maturity was never God's intention. That was the fall of man.
That's right.
And now we age past that. So I choose to say, God, I want the blessing. I want what you originally intended.
That's right.
Which was to feel strong, to feel healthy, to enjoy life, to go on this adventure.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, if you look at the examples, and these aren't even people under the new covenant, Moses, I mean, on the day that he crossed over at 120, climbed a mountain. And it's like, and it said that his eyes were not dim and his natural forces were not abated. And so it's like, why do we as children of God accept less than that? And so I love what you said about soaring with Him, because right now, currently, He has you in aviation. And I just want you to share one speck about what you're doing in dance right now. I love this. And the name of where you go, just because it just is so the heart of God.
It is, Yvonne. So, I had shared with you earlier that when I was in college in my early 20s, I loved going out to clubs and dancing, and I was partying, and I was sinning, but I was having a good time.
Yeah.
And when I realized when I came to the end of that, I kind of, lived this boring, I guess you could say what I thought was a Christian life.
Yeah.
And I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, and I just threw all of it out. And, but I always loved dance, always loved dancing. And I really just shot up a prayer at one point, and I said, Lord, I don't have fun anymore. And I love dancing, and I don't know how, but could you just incorporate this into my life in a way that's pleasing to you? And I really couldn't in that moment think of, it's almost like when you shoot up a prayer and you think like, this isn't even possible, but if you are the God you say you are, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And so I started taking dance lessons this past year and totally fell in love with it, and just feel so peaceful about this is an outlet for me to like he's such a God of redemption. He doesn't, nothing gets wasted, nothing. The things that he places in your heart as a child that you love that are from him, he will bring them back and he'll restore it. And I felt that's what he's doing now, is allowing me to dance and in a way that's pleasing to him. And it's funner now, and it's better now than it ever was back when I was younger.
Amen. Well, I couldn't agree more, and I told you you've never looked more just alive and light, and just like you're having such an amazing time with Daddy. And so I want you to just give one thing that you would just like to say to our audience, just in, that time while you're hearing from God, and what the next steps are. Something that you would.
I would say pay attention to the dreams in your heart, that the things that you love, that make you smile, any kind of dream that you have, take it to God. Don't hide it from him, or think that, who am I to bring this to God, or who am I to have this thing, because he is a good father, and it's likely he's placed that dream in your heart. Take it to him, and he will take you on an adventure that is so much better than anything you can think or dream up, anything the world has to offer. Take it to him just by yourself. Take a pen and paper and just sit with him and dream beyond your wildest dreams. And just sit there and wait and listen. And I promise you, he will either speak to you in that moment, or you'll be driving or showering, doing something, and all of a sudden you'll have downloads, and that he will just take you on a journey that you could not dream up in your wildest dreams. Don't hide anything from him, because what he could do with it is better than what you could do with it. So I just want to encourage people to keep dreaming, because he wants to just take you on a wild adventure with him, and a fun one, something that in the world, when we as we age, typically what the world has to offer is just aging, and you get older and people get cranky. But with God, he takes you, and your life will continue to get better and more fun and more joyful. And so I just want to encourage people, just go say yes to him. You won't be sorry.
Well, that encourages me. Well, thank you. And that was just such amazing downloads for anybody in any stages of their lives, and just hearing from God and waiting on that direction from him. So thank you, Jacky, so much for being on here.
Thank you for having me, Yvonne.
You are so welcome. So I just want to encourage any of our viewers, just take the time, hear the voice of God, take the steps that Jacky said today, and just hearing him before you even move forward. And so I just thank you so much for tuning in today. And just remember, everyone's story is here for his glory, if you will allow it to. But take that dash, run this dash, and enjoy.